All right, we are live. First weekend edition of the Sweat of 2020. What did we do to deserve this?
I don't know. We probably don't deserve it.
It's true, but
Sorry
we're here
about
anyway. You're stuck with us for 90 minutes. Jessie, Coffield, Emerson, Lotzia. So we got the usual suspects today joining us also throughout this hour-and-a-half program, answering all of your sports betting and daily fantasy sports questions. That's still a thing right now in the playoffs, okay?
Yeah, we're going game by game. You're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and as you're watching us, be sure to play along,
Yes, please do.
Keep your eye out, especially if you're on Facebook, for some questions that we may actually ask you. You can always ask us questions. We're going to answer them live on the air, but on Facebook, we may have polls, we may have questions, and if we have polls, exercise your right to vote, please.
Yeah, that's very, very important. It's just that time of year. Let's go ahead, though, and bring in the four amigos. We got Reed T. Fowler, top left corner, right corner, the top corner. What am I talking about?
It's calm
That's
down.
Steve Buchanan. I don't know my directions.
Bottom
Jeff
left.
It's bottom left. Okay, and then that would be Rosalie Michaels,
bottom
the fantasy
right.
girl, bottom right.
Okay.
Oh man, my brain. What is happening?
What a
good
brain
morning
buster.
Good morning to so difficult directions. Good morning to our NFL panel. So we're going to talk totals, props, fantasy, going game by game. Yep, spreads as well. So let's start with the Texans here, hosting the Bills. It's a 3-point spread. Can the Bills come away with a road win? Jeff.
First of all, directions are hard, Emerson. At least we didn't ask you to go like north, south, west. Come on, you get lost in the studio, right?
Jeff, don't make him get a headache, please.
I think both of these teams are a little bit hard to put your finger on. Obviously Buffalo, it's their first time in the playoffs for a while. They've been really good against on the road though this year, especially against the spread. I'm taking Buffalo here to get this done. I really feel like they're a bit of an undervalued team. You look at how the Texans set up. Not great in the secondary. I don't think they're going to have an answer for John Brown. Also not great at guarding against the pass. I think Devin Singletary is going to be able to take advantage there. I like Buffalo. I think they're an undervalued team still. I think they're going to cover, and I think they're going to pull off the upset.
Okay, Rosalie, you think they cover? You think they win outright here, talking about the Bills?
I think that the Bills cover. I don't think they win outright. I still think Houston is a little bit better of an offense. Yeah, Houston's defense is terrible. And Jeff just mentioned how bad how good the Bills are on the road against the spread. But the flip side of that is how bad Houston is against the spread at home and in general. They're 3-6-1 in their last 10, and 1-5 as a favorite, and 1-5 as a home favorite. So it doesn't speak well to them being able to cover the spread. Another thing that doesn't speak well to them being able to cover the spread is their last in red zone percentage for their defense, allowing other teams to score. They're 32nd in the league. They allow 71% of a touchdown in the red zone. So Buffalo, who usually has a problem scoring actual points, they've got a great defense. They're going to have a little bit of an easier time, but I still think Houston wins this one.
Steve, what do you think about Das Bills?
I like the Bills a lot here. I actually think this might be one of the worst matchups that the Texans could have drawn in this wild card weekend here. Like both Jeff and Rosalie have been mentioning, the Bills have done very well against the spread, 9-5-2 overall, 5-2-2 as underdogs. And I think Rosalie said too, Houston 1-5 as home favorites. Like absolutely atrocious number for being a home favorite here. And I think they're going to have a lot of issues with Josh Allen and John Brown here, Devin Singletary. There's a lot to like on this Bills team here against a Houston defense that I don't know what they do when they're on defense because they don't cover or stop anybody. So I think the Bills win this game outright.
Steve, that's a good answer.
Thanks.
Reed, do you have a similar answer?
You know what? It's Saturday. Emerson usually on Saturdays on his third workout at this time.
Right.
I've used that joke before. I know I've recycled it, but it's true. It's not a joke when it's true.
Yeah.
When you look at the Bills, they are public favorites through and through. Everyone, all the pundits are saying the Bills have a solid chance. And when we rattle off the numbers, rightfully so, right? When you just look at the Bills ATS, they do that. And Houston, I'm with the public. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. And if you just look at Houston's secondary, and I think when you're Josh Allen and when you're the Bills, you don't necessarily use that to your advantage, but that secondary is just so bad. Hargraves, Conley as a combination have given up 11 touchdowns. That's not good, right? It's not good at all. And so when you have these matchups that we like in DFS, like a Singletary and Josh Allen, this whole team, I think the Bills are going to win out right here.
All right, over-under in this game is set at 43.5. Which way are you leaning on this one, Rosalie?
I'm leaning under, but only slightly under. And that's part of it is Buffalo's record on the over/under. They're terrible. They're 1-4 in the last 5 games, 2-6 when they're away, and we all know they just don't put up a lot of points. But Houston can put up points, with the exception of Baltimore. When they played Baltimore this year, they're putting up in the mid to late 20s and in the 30s. So they're going to be able to score even against this good Buffalo defense. So I think it's tight under the 43.5, but I still have to lean under just because I don't trust Buffalo to score enough points.
Steve, are you leaning under as well?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of like what Rosalie was alluding to, both these teams have not done well hitting the over. Buffalo's 4-12 on the year. The Texans are 7-9. But kind of like I mentioned earlier, I think Buffalo, unlike what Rosalie was thinking, I think Buffalo's going to score a good amount of points against this Texans defense. Like I said, they have just been absolutely gashed through the air, on the ground. Like Josh Allen running for a league-leading 9 rushing touchdowns this year just adds such a different dimension to this Buffalo offense. Like, I know that they're not a team that we usually bet the over with, but this total just feels a little bit too low for teams that on both sides have some really good weapons that both teams are going to have to try to defend and stop here. So I think this is not going to be like a blowout. This is not going to be over 50 points here, but I still think this total is too low, so I'm going to take the over.
Okay, Reed, you going with Rosalie or Steve?
Yeah.
I usually go with Rosalie on everything.
Boy. Yeah, you do.
But I'm with Steve on this
There we
one.
go.
Yeah, if you look at the under, Josh Allen as road underdogs, he's 10-1 hitting the under. Sean McDermott, same thing when he's a road dog, 18-7 hitting the under. Bill O'Brien also, when he's favored at home, hits the under quite a bit. I know it's in a dome. I know that's a misnomer. But if you got this early at 41.5, that was a spot to hit the over. This is too high for me right now, so give me the under.
All right,
So
Jeff.
you do agree with me?
Whoa,
Oh.
whoa.
I agree with you. I'm just gonna say I agree with you on everything, but that's the other side.
That sounds
of the
like a
argument.
good plan.
Yeah.
Jeff,
I went under.
Yeah.
Oh.
She did go under, so.
Thanks for paying attention.
Shoot. I agree with Rosalie.
Oh my
See,
God,
I should have stuck with
Reed,
it. It's
what did
Emerson.
we
He's rubbing off on me. It's
God.
Emerson's
I'm
fault.
not touching you.
Okay, be quiet, boys. Jeff, where are you going?
Children.
Thanks, Jesse.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Always.
I'm taking the under here too. I'm not 100% convinced of the health of Deshaun Watson. I think Tre'Davious White is going to have a chance here to at least limit DeAndre Hopkins. Both these teams had losing records against the over regular season, like big losing records. I really like the under in this spot.
All right, for DFS, talking classic lineups here, which quarterback is the most attractive to roster, Steve?
I'm
That
got to
wasn't
keep
where I
going
was
with
going.
Josh Allen here. He's the third most expensive quarterback at 6,500. Like, you look at his game log over the course of the year, he's only averaging about 193 passing yards, which isn't all that attractive here, but the rushing upside that he brings has just been immense here. Like I mentioned, 9 rushing touchdowns on the year, which was the most in the league, averaging about 32 rushing yards per game. And the Houston Texans have been a team that have allowed opposing quarterbacks to rush against them, about 17 yards per game. And while that doesn't feel like a lot or a big number here, it was the sixth most in the league average-wise. So they're a team that you can run upon with the quarterback there. So I think he's a more attractive one here to roster.
Reed, our viewers believe Josh Allen will score more fantasy points. 86% of the vote going his way right now.
Whoa.
Yeah, whatever Rosalie says, I'm going to agree with. I'm just going to say that. No, look, Watson's a decent GPP player, right? Because if you just look at just these two quarterbacks, you got to lean towards Watson as a better quarterback. The better spot or the matchup is for Josh Allen. So I don't mind going GPPs with Watson. But yeah, I agree. I mean, if you look at Josh Allen, just the ability with his feet is going to really split the difference there.
Jeff, do you roster Josh Allen over Deshaun Watson?
I mean, look, both these quarterbacks are obviously in play today. I mean, a huge rushing upside with both guys. Again, I mentioned the health of Deshaun Watson. He really did not end the season well. I mean, he had one game of 3 or more passing touchdowns in his last 9 games. His last 3 or 4 games were kind of terrible from a fantasy perspective. The Houston Texans allowed the 7th most rushing yards to opposing QBs. And actually, if you go by yards per carry basis, they were the worst teams at limiting opposing quarterbacks' rushing totals. So I think Josh Allen's in a really good spot here. I'd lean Allen for sure.
You going to lean Deshaun Watson at all here, Rosalie? He's starting to pull in more of the vote.
No, I have to agree with the guys. You know, Watson, like Jeff said, he's been kind of disappointing as of late. And then when you look at him going up against that Buffalo defense that is really good against the QB, the most fantasy points that Buffalo has given up, there were 3 games where they gave up over 20 fantasy points to the opposing QBs, and even against good QBs, right? Even against mobile QBs. 3 games. And then the one highest was Dak Prescott at 25.2. I just think that Josh Allen, with all the reasons the guys said before, has a lot more upside here. Yeah, he's going to have J.J. Watt in his face a little bit. He's probably going to throw an interception. But when you look at the fact that he's averaging almost 26 fantasy points per game against bottom 12 defenses, and Houston's a bottom 12 defense, I like it. Allen's also been really terrific on the road this week because he averages, this year, he's averaging about 22.4 fantasy points a game, and that's only behind Lamar Jackson.
All right, guys, Saturday's nightcap features the Patriots as 4.5-point favorites over the Titans. Jeff, can Tennessee pull off the upset here? Tell us why you're answering yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on team. There's no doubt in my mind. I love the Titans in this spot. I mean, look, you just look at the Patriots and how they performed against teams with winning records this year. Their offense only put up 18.5 points against teams with winning records. Their rush defense was a lot more susceptible to getting run on against good rushing teams, top 15 rushing teams. Derrick Henry's going to run just all over this Patriots defense, in my opinion. I think the Titans are actually going to win big.
Rosalie, are the Titans going to win big?
This will also be Reed's answer.
Stutter.
Yes.
Just double it. You know what? I agree with Jeff. I like the Titans as the upset here. The thing that scares me a little bit is you look at history, and the Patriots are 11-0 under Bill Belichick when they're facing a quarterback that's making his playoff debut. So that worries me a little bit because I do like historical trends like that. But this is a tale of two different teams going in different directions, right? Tennessee's going this way, Patriots going this way. So New England, their season performance versus good teams at the end of the season, 2 times they've covered this spread versus Buffalo and Philadelphia. I think that Tennessee wins this outright.
Steve, I have a feeling you disagree.
This is such a tough game to read, honestly. Like, the Patriots have not done well against the spread as home favorites. They're 3-4-1 on the year. And the biggest thing is they have to stop Derrick Henry if they're going to have a chance in this game here, because teams who use running backs heavily have done well against the Patriots. You look at some of the teams that have over 100 rushing yards against the Patriots this year. Buffalo, Cleveland, Baltimore, Dallas, Cincinnati, all teams that run their running backs very heavily into the ground. This is one of those teams. With the Titans here, they could sell out, try to stop Derrick Henry, and let Ryan Tannehill win this game for him through the air, which could be pretty tough too as well here. I'm going to side with the Patriots here because it's the playoffs and this is the opportunity or the time for them to shine here. But this is probably the worst I felt about them, pretty much all time.
I just want to make a note here that was the weakest Patriots endorsement I've ever heard. So if the Patriots do win, Steve can't throw this back in our face. Yeah.
Okay.
No, but the Super Bowl is a different thing, right, Jeff?
But I will say, for Ryan Tannehill, obviously he's been on a roll, but today marks the first game in which he'll face a top 10 pass defense. So, Reed, does that sway your answer away from Rosalie's?
It does. And the Patriots. I mean, if you want a decision for conviction here, the Patriots have been doing this for so long. Granted, this is their first time wild card weekend since 2009, back when Emerson was wearing jorts back in Utah when he was working there.
I was
definitely.
thick.
Yeah, he was definitely.
2 C's.
But again, if you look at what the Patriots have to do, they have to sell out to stop Derrick Henry, and they've done pretty well against Ryan Tannehill in his time in Miami, where Ryan Tannehill hasn't won a single game in Foxborough when he's with Miami. Now, was that a totally different situation? Absolutely. Tannehill has been fantastic this entire year. And Stephon Gilmore, again, is a guy who, of recent, hasn't been the same. But it's the Patriots. Come on, you can't bet against the Patriots.
Hey, Reed, for a showdown contest here, who do you like as a captain?
Yeah, Tom Brady's a good GPP option, but Julian Edelman, if you take a look at what he's been able to do in the playoffs, it's been fantastic. He's averaging 6.5 catches. If you just look at his target share in the playoffs, it's been better than his regular season. We know he's coming in here a little banged up, but if you look at the secondary in Tennessee, they've been susceptible to guys, especially of Julian Edelman's stature, so give me Edelman.
Jeff, 1.5 times the salary, but giving you 1.5 times the points.
Yeah, no, for captain, it's Derrick Henry for me. I thought that was obvious already. But, I mean, again, just outlining the Patriots' difficulties against good rushing teams here. They just have not been the same. And I feel like, they're still New England, yes, but they've really kind of pulled the wool over people's eyes this year because of their weak schedule. They've been beating up on weak teams. Tennessee's not a weak team. Derrick Henry has a very, very good chance of putting up a ceiling game here. So I definitely like him as captain.
Rosalie, was this when you picked Josh Allen earlier in the week?
No, this is because it's a different game. So, no, this is, I agree. Here's the thing.
This is a different game. I don't know what I was just asking.
Saturday.
God.
I
Dude,
did
what is going on?
pick Josh Allen. I actually picked John Brown as the captain in my
Cool, so I'm wrong twice.
Bills game. Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. It's Saturday. It's weird.
I think you're thinking about me, Emerson, when I picked Derrick Henry for the Houston Buffalo Bills game.
Precisely.
Yeah, that's
Thanks for
probably
saving me
what it
there,
is.
Jeff. I really appreciate it. It's a huge help.
Got you, buddy. I got you.
So I don't think it's any coincidence that this winter storm coming into Foxborough is Winter Storm Henry, because that's what's going to be happening. This is crazy.
Oh, God.
I mean, you can't script it any better than that. He averages 26 fantasy points per game since week 9. That's the second most in the league. He's ranked number 1 in the league with an average of 2.3 yards after first contact. You can't take this guy down. Patriots are going to have a hard time. They're not going to be able to tackle him for 4 quarters, and that's what they're going to need to do in order to win this game. Vrabel knows it. He's going to be in this game plan a lot. I'm doing Derrick Henry in my captain spot.
Steve, I'll go ahead and just let you take this.
Steve, keep it civil.
I mean, I hope I can show this on air. Like, here's the weather forecast. It's like there's nothing on there. There's nothing. Look at cloudy. Oh, maybe a little bit of rain here and cloudy. Like, the weather's not going to be an issue, so don't worry about the weather.
Steve, just for
The
you,
weather
surprise.
cam.
It is coming
As
down.
you
This is a live look at the weather.
This
Cats
is
and
precipitation that has gathered on the street, also known as a puddle.
And that's going to mean traffic is
that
going to be
Rufus
moving at a
Emerson?
steady rate down the street.
Well, that looks wet to me.
I'm not talking about weather, though. I'm just talking about the name of the storm. I think it's prolific.
It is prolific.
It is.
It certainly looks wet and moist out there.
You know
Oh,
what?
God.
You know what? None of you deserve my answer, so go on.
Yeah, do
I'm not
you
giving my answer.
have
Oh,
anybody
gee.
else, or is that it?
It's Julian Edelman, but that's all I'm saying.
He's taking Marcus Mariota as his captain.
Okay, so real quick, Julian Edelman is one I had down here. He's going to face Logan Ryan in coverage, who's been quite honestly one of the worst slot corners in the league so far. 70% yard percent, 77% catch percentage, over 11 yards per reception. Rolls Julian Edelman. Hopefully he doesn't self-implode on the first hit he takes in this game.
All right, guys, we're going to ask you the same questions, but for Sunday's pair of NFC games coming up after we hit the books and deliver this Levitan's Leverage gem.
Wildcard weekend is upon us. 2 games Saturday, 2 Sunday, but just 1 Levitan's Leverage. Adam Kaufman, Adam Levitan. It's a new year, so it is time for Levy to give us 3 new players he's excited about this weekend. Levy, here we go. Drew Brees, second highest priced QB, $6,600. His Saints, of course, are hosting the Vikings. Now, the NFL's career leader in regular season touchdown passes. He wrapped up the year with 23 total TDs his last 7 games, only the 1 interception. New Orleans' last 2 postseasons, heartbreaking. So why will this one be different for Brees?
Yeah, I mean, this is the perfect spot for Drew Brees. He plays so much better at home, and really the way you want to play against the Vikings to throw the ball a ton. I mean, Xavier Rhodes is past his prime, and the rest of the secondary has had so many miscommunications all year, resulting in big plays. So I think we'll see a pass-centric game plan from the Saints, and the Vikings personnel just does not match up well at all with Kamara out of the backfield and with Michael Thomas and with Jared Cook, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm pretty confident that Drew Brees will be the highest scoring quarterback on the slate.
Let's stay in the NFC. Seahawks at the Eagles. DK Metcalf, 6,100, fresh off a 12-target, 20-point game. The guy's also built like an Adonis. But I'm guessing that last part is not why you're fixated on him this weekend. So what is it?
Yeah, I mean, DK Metcalf has had a huge role all year, playing every snap, running extremely deep routes, and Russell Wilson just so efficient, especially from a touchdown perspective. So to get DK Metcalf in a matchup against an Eagles secondary, I mean, the Eagles just are such a huge funnel. They play so well against the run, and especially with, Marshawn Lynch and Travis Homer at running back for the Seahawks. The game plan should be to unleash Russell Wilson for 35, 40 attempts here, and DK Metcalf just a big-time playmaker.
All right, Bills in Houston trying to win their first playoff game in 25 years. Devin Singletary is 6K, which puts him in the top 5 among running backs. So is this just matchup motivation against a lousy run D, or is it something else?
Well, we've seen a role change for Devin Singletary lately. Starting in Week 16, he played every snap except for 2. Frank Gore played just 2 snaps. And then in Week 17, when the game didn't mean anything, Devin Singletary rests. Frank Gore plays the entire first half. So I think we can say with a pretty good bit of confidence that Devin Singletary is really likely to play 100% of the snaps in this game on Saturday. And you can't really say that for many running backs. You can't say that for many running backs on this slate. So yeah, Devin Singletary has 100% of the snaps, talented guy, and in what I think will be a higher scoring game than other people do. I think Devin Singletary makes a lot of sense.
You going for a joyride now that we're done here?
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, joyride.
Well, I don't know. I see the bike behind you.
Oh yeah. Well, bike's not fully put together. It's kind of like the truck I used to have back there.
You used to. I worry what happened to that giant box. Levitan's Leverage. Thanks, bud.
All right. Good luck.
All right, guys, time for a little segment we call Hitting the Books, where we give you an exclusive insider look at what's going down at sportsbooks across the country. So we have our usual cast of characters here. We got Hal Tendler, Sportsbook Manager at Resorts Atlantic City, Nicole Beauvert, Del Lago Sportsbook Manager, and Andy Crone, Sportsbook Supervisor at Wild Rose Resorts in Iowa. So Nicole, let's start with you. You're in upstate New York, and the Bills are up first on Wild Card Weekend, as we know. Is there a higher volume of action on Buffalo today?
We have our normal Bills crowd here betting the Bills, but since there's only 2 games today, we're definitely seeing more bets coming in than usual. Only 4 of the 16 Bills games have gone over this season, and the Texans are only slightly favored by 2.5. So a common bet here is the Bills money line parlayed with the under at plus 310.
So are certain player props on stars like Josh Allen more popular today?
Yeah, so for the first time in 6 weeks, the Bills aren't playing a top 10 defense, so fans are looking for Allen to take advantage here. A popular prop bet is for him to score 1 touchdown at plus 180 or even 2 at plus 1100.
Thanks, Nicole. All right, let's move to Hal in Atlantic City. Hal, the Eagles get a lot of attention. Are they carrying a lot of interest as home underdogs today?
Not today. Generally, the public bets the day of, an hour before the game, and the Eagles have the late game tomorrow, so most people are focusing on today's games. Tomorrow, I'm sure it'll be a big influx on the Eagles. However, to make Nicole happy, we're getting a lot of Buffalo Bill action here today.
Nice.
Oh, love that. All right, well, what's the biggest parlay you've seen so far for Wild Card Weekend?
So we have a parlay on a money line. A guy took the Bills, Seattle, Patriots, and Saints at plus 706 on his parlay.
All right, Andy, you're in NFC North country, and with the Vikings in action this weekend, have you seen like a spike in action on that Minnesota-New Orleans game?
Yeah, it's business as usual here. Most of the action is coming in on that game. Usually it's point spreads and over-unders, but with this being the biggest underdog the Vikings have been all season, a lot of people are starting to come in on the money line and taking that plus 325, 330-ish number.
Now, what's the biggest singular bet you've seen this weekend?
Not a lot of big bets so far today yet. We've had a couple 400 or 500s, but our biggest bet today is 1,000 on that money line, Vikings to win 3,300. So.
All right, Hal, Nicole, Andy, thank you for the time. We appreciate it as always. The sweat is rolling on. We're going to take a look at Sunday's wildcard games. But first, Adam Kaufman interviewed this year's winner of the Fantasy Football World Championships.
You know, not many people go out to watch football one afternoon and leave $2 million richer, but Jessie Martin here knows exactly what that's like. I'm Adam Kaufman, and Jessie won DraftKings Fantasy Football World Championship in Miami last month. So what was it like logging into your DK account and seeing a deposit like that?
That was pretty crazy. Yeah, that was pretty crazy, especially last year. I don't even remember if I won or lost at the end of the year, but I put in a lot of work last year, and I definitely didn't have any huge scores. So the account was never that huge. So then even 6 figures really. So just to see that was pretty amazing.
How's your life changed just since winning FFWC?
I guess the biggest change, it just kind of makes me a little less anxiety, a little less worried about the day to day than maybe I had been. I've been a professional poker player for since I graduated college and have done well. But now I have a house and a mortgage and a 3-year-old son and a wife. So, I used to not really feel much pressure about money, but all that stuff is pretty important, pretty expensive. So
sure.
I had started to feel a little more pressure over the last couple of years. So this is a nice little bump up.
Well, and when playing contests before, obviously at much lower stakes than the opportunity to win $2 million, or like you said, being a professional poker player, have you ever experienced a sweat like that before? A day long where the prize is what it was at the end?
The most comparable one would be I came in third in the $50,000 Players Championship at the World Series of Poker, where third was $600,000 and first was $1.6 million. Although when you're playing poker, you're not thinking about the money as much because you're in there, you're trying to play your best poker. With fantasy sports or DFS, which is kind of one of the things I really enjoy about it. You put in all the work up until lineup lock, but once you set your lineup, your work is done, and you kind of just more or less get to enjoy yourself, or not enjoy yourself if you're not doing well. But so it's a lot more of a sweat in that way. So I definitely felt the swings of the money more in this scenario. It was really fun just to focus on one lineup and have that lineup be meaningful instead of throwing 10, 15 different ideas in the Wildcat. You said this is like your opinion. This is what you think the best lineup is. So I kind of like that about the live finals.
Have you gotten frivolous at all? Any ridiculous purchases?
With tax season winding down, I definitely played some high stakes DFS contests over the last week or two. We have a lot of practical things we could do. We could put an addition on the house, or all that kind of stuff.
Congratulations again on winning FFWC and on to next year as well, hopefully.
Well, the sweat is back. We are at the desk now, and we're moving on to Sunday's wild card games, talking spreads, totals, and DFS plays with a quad box of talent.
All right, that would be DraftKings contributors Steve Buchanan, Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, and the fancy girl, Rosalie Michaels. All right, guys. Minnesota and New Orleans are the first game on the Sunday schedule. The Saints are 7.5-point home favorites. Should the spread be that high, though, Steve?
Yeah, I have absolutely no problem with this spread here. I think the Saints are going to have no problem going against this Vikings team. Their secondary has been absolutely decimated all season long. Then you look at the Saints. They're averaging 30 points a game with Drew Brees under quarterback, 37.5 to round out the season over their last 5 games here. The Vikings are not going to give them much pushback when it comes to their offense here. They're not going to be able to stop Michael Thomas. They're not going to be able to stop Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray. I think there's just way too much for the Saints going into this game here. So I like this spread here. I would even take it up to -9 at this point. I just think that the Saints have no issues with the Vikings in this game.
Jeff, maybe it's not high enough.
I kind of lean the other way. I feel like the spread is pretty close to being right on, and I actually lean towards taking the Vikings for a backdoor cover here when it gets to +8. And the reason is, it's not that I don't think the Saints aren't going to win this game, and I think the Saints are going to put up a lot of points, but look, the Saints at home especially, they've allowed some they've just played horrible in spots. They're a little bit banged up as well. San Francisco put up 48 points. Carolina almost beat them at home here. So this isn't an infallible Saints team, especially at home. I do feel like, again, Kirk Cousins getting Adam Thielen back. They're probably going to be able to work the pass game a little bit. I think the Vikings provide a backdoor cover here. It wouldn't shock me if they did anyway.
Reed, we know that Jeff likes Kirk Cousins.
He likes the weirdest, dumbest players. It's so
not
weird.
Nick Foles. He's not dumb.
Oh, man. Kirk Cousins is a good GPP tournament play. I'll give Jeff that. If you look at this game specifically, though, I'm going to side with Jeff. I think the Vikings do cover here. I think the Saints win, but not by this much. If you look at Drew Brees at home in the playoffs, he's 2-6 ATS. And if you just look at New Orleans in general, when they've been favored at home, they just don't do that well. And again, this team is firing all cylinders. It's tough to fade that in terms of the over-under, but in terms of ATS, I think it's a little too high. So give me the Vikings covering, but the Saints winning.
Rosalie, what do you think? Oh, nope, can't hear you. Must have gotten the mic turned
There
off.
we go.
There we go. Yeah.
They still have me muted.
Oh, man.
Oh, it's because of your
They
weather
suck.
take.
Yeah, it is. That's why. It was Steve that did it, isn't it? I'm going to disagree with these guys. Minnesota is a underdog on the road. They're 1-2 against the spread. I agree with Steve here. I think that this is too low for the Saints. 7.5 points. You look at what they've done against the spread versus what Minnesota's done against the spread. Minnesota has not done as well, especially the last 2 weeks without Dalvin Cook. Now that's going to change this week with him back in. But, New Orleans, you look at their last 3 games, they won by 32, won by 10, won by 27. It was Carolina and Indianapolis was 2 of those games, but one of them was Tennessee, who's got a good, solid team. So I like New Orleans to cover here. I think that this is a Saints team that is rolling right now. Minnesota seems a little iffy. And I think this is a revenge game from 2 years ago where the Minneapolis Miracle happened.
Ooh.
It's not going to happen this time in New Orleans.
Well, a big game expected from Drew Brees, over 300 projected passing yards, but could you go a little contrarian in DFS classic lineups and roster Kirk Cousins for $6,100? All right, we know what Jeff thinks about this one, but Reed, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's a good play. I think it's a contrarian play. Look, the implied total is up to 50 or 49 or 50 and a half, whatever it is. And Kirk Cousins, that game script is he's going to be passing a ton. And if you look at these high-scoring games that Kirk Cousins has been in, he's thrown for 334, 340 yards in one of them, and then 275 in the other. So we know that he can get up there. He has the full complement of the receivers and the talent that he has, the skill players on the Minnesota offense. So yeah, I think Kirk Cousins at 6,100 is a good GPP play. For big slates though, I would probably go to Carson Wentz, but Cousins not bad.
Rosalie, would you roster Cousins?
Yeah, I think, and if you look at what the Vikings have said, they're going to cut Cook loose in this game against the Saints, and they should. That's how they're going to keep up. That's their best option there against Saints. Saints give up 104 rushing yards at home to running backs. So we're going to see a lot of Dalvin Cook. I think we'll get some Cousins action, but, Lattimore's going to be on Stephon Diggs. Thielen's still banged up, so I don't know that the efficiency is going to be there. So I think there are other options that I like a little bit better, like Tannehill, like some of the other quarterbacks out there than Kirk Cousins.
Steve, another Steve on Facebook makes a good point, saying Cousins is a bum, especially in games that matter.
Okay.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, Steve. I think that's a very fair point, but at least in tournaments, like you look at where Kirk Cousins is priced, he's sandwiched right in between Carson Wentz and Tom Brady, two guys that I think are going to get a little bit more attention than Cousins here. I think Cousins is going to have very low ownership, and just going by how the game script is likely going to play out here with the Vikings as, over a touchdown underdogs here, like these guys have been saying, Kirk Cousins is going to have to throw into this game. And, Rosalie mentioned how Dalvin Cook is probably going to get unleashed in this game. They want to use him a lot here. But the Saints have actually been very good overall against opposing running backs. Their secondary has been where all the issues have been coming through. We're still talking about Stephon Diggs. Still talking about Adam Thielen here. So in a tournament, big field tournament, I think Kirk Cousins makes a lot of sense because you're going to be getting a unique construction to your lineup if you start going chalky at some of the other positions with guys like Michael Thomas or Derrick Henry and whatnot. So I do like Kirk Cousins in some of those tournaments.
Jeff, can Kirk Cousins, who has never won a playoff game, actually keep up in this one?
I mean, that's the thing. He doesn't have to win to be a good fantasy player, right? You can be a bum and still pay off for fantasy. Blake Bortles did it for multiple years in Jacksonville.
Good old Blake Garbage Time.
The boat.
So, I mean, look, we got the biggest fantasy total or biggest point total on the slate here by far at 49.5. Again, they may want to run Dalvin Cook, but Dalvin Cook hasn't had a 100-yard rushing game since week 7. He's banged up as well. Kirk Cousins and the Vikings are going to have to throw the ball. I think Adam Thielen is actually closer to 100% than people realize. I think that is a matchup that the Vikings are going to be able to take advantage of, too. Again, he might throw like 3 interceptions and 3 touchdowns and 300 yards, and the Vikings will still lose by 10 points. But I think Kirk Cousins, at what should be like 5 to 8% ownership in big GPPs, is a fantastic tournament pivot, especially when you pair him with one of those wide receivers.
All right, well, we know all the big names despite how we all may feel about them. But for Showdown Contest, where can you find some value in this one, Rosalie?
I think you have to look to one of those Minnesota wide receivers because Thielen's still banged up. Don't know how much he's going to play because Lattimore is going to be on Stephon Diggs. So I'm looking at Laquan Treadwell. He's $3,000. He's been to and from the team a number of times. He knows this team. So, if you're going to take a dart throw, if you're going to look for value, you got to look at it in the wide receiver position on Minnesota.
Steve, value, please.
He drives me absolutely nuts because I never roster him and then he goes and does something. But Taysom Hill is just way too cheap at $2,000. He's one of the most infuriating players to roster because, if you don't have him, then you see him on the field. You're like, why is he on the field? And then he actually goes and does something. But they just love using him in a variety of different ways. He's averaging 10.4 DraftKings fantasy points over his last 5 games. And you look at some of the guys that are surrounding him in salary, it's like third-string running backs. He is more valuable than some of those guys that he's around. He's He's just too cheap here. He's going to go out there, do some stupid trick play, probably get some points, and you're going to be like, oh, I'm glad I took him, but he's just so infuriating, but whatever. Taysom Hill, I guess. Guy's a bum.
Jeff, value.
So annoying.
I like Traquan Smith quite a bit. I think what people might be overlooking here is that he's outsnapped Ted Ginn in 3 or 4 games now in a row, and he has put up 3 touchdowns in 4 of his and three touchdowns in the last 4 games. Again, he is not going to get like 8 targets or 9 targets, but he's a player who could catch a couple long passes on 4 targets, go for a long touchdown, definitely pay off there. We've mentioned the week's Minnesota secondary. I think it's a very good matchup for that to happen. So I like Traquan Smith.
Reed, talk to me about value.
Yeah, Minnesota secondary is banged up as well. I don't know if it's Trey Waynes or one of these other guys. They're banged up, and so when you have Xavier Rhodes as one of your only cornerbacks, it's going to be tough for Minnesota. But I'm sticking on the Minnesota offensive side, and I'm going to Irv Smith. I believe he's at $3,000. Again, like both these teams defend the tight ends extremely well. I'd rather roster Irv Smith over a guy like Jared Cook on the other side because Minnesota has been great against opposing tight ends. But if you look at Irv Smith, the target share that Kirk Cousins has for that position of tight end is one of the tops in the NFL. So this guy needs a touchdown. I know he's splitting time with Kyle Rudolph, but he's a talented athlete.
The late game on Sunday featuring the Seahawks as the only road favorite of the weekend. Seattle 1.5-point favorites over Philadelphia. Steve, should the Eagles be the underdog here, though?
Yeah, I do agree with them being underdogs here. I mean, the Seattle's is 2-1-1 as road favorites so far this season here. But we've talked about this for weeks now. The Eagles are just simply depleted of all of their weapons. Their Aguilar has been officially ruled out. We're still waiting on the news of Ertz. And for me, that's the biggest difference maker because we talk about teams that have been struggled against opposing tight ends. You think of like the Arizona Cardinals, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Seattle Seahawks are actually one of those teams. They were one of 3 teams to allow over 1,000 receiving yards to that position here. So it would put Ertz in an amazing position if he's active here. I know Goddard would be able to step into that role as well, but you'd much rather Ertz be on the field than Goddard. As it stands right now, I don't see why Seattle is just such a small favorite here. I think you take advantage of that and go with the Seahawks.
Jeff, 67% of our audience believes Seattle will cover on the road at Philadelphia. Do you agree?
Yeah, I guess I'm going with the audience here. The audience play, we'll call Seattle. Look, Seattle is one of those teams. They just make every game interesting. Like, you really don't know what's going to show up. Pete Carroll, what plays he's going to call around the goal line. But the one thing that Seattle has done well this year is show up on the road. I mentioned this earlier in the week, but their defense has been far more opportunistic. I mean, 14 interceptions in 8 road games this year. They've put up a lot more DK fantasy points there, too. And again, I just feel like this Philadelphia Cinderella story out of nowhere, but I feel like it's going to end here. I just feel like the Seattle defense is going to show up. Pete Carroll will at least have that side of the ball going for them. And then you have Russell Wilson, who I really don't feel like the Eagles' D-line is going to be able to get enough pressure on Russell Wilson like they did with Daniel Jones last week. I think Wilson's mobility is going to be a big factor here. So I'll take Seattle. I agree. They're going to win this game.
Reed, who are you taking?
I'll go Philly, right here on the money line. I'll be with the minority in terms of the audience. And if you just look at the Eagles and what they've done, granted, they've played less than stellar teams over the last 4, but they've won 4 straight. Carson Wentz is putting up points. He's got 30 completions in 3 of his last 4 games, 10 touchdowns to 1 interception. If you look at both of these guys in terms of the quarterbacks, Russell Wilson is fantastic. And I would argue Carson Wentz is inching closer and closer to playing just as good, if not better, than Russell Wilson at this time. And momentum is huge in the playoffs. Give me the Eagles here.
Originally, you agree with the Eagles being the underdog here in what is being dubbed the Injury Bowl.
Boy, Reed has really bought into the hype that is the last 5 Philadelphia games.
Whoa. A lot of games.
Did you take a look at who they played? They played the Giants twice.
Yeah,
they played Washington. They played terrible teams. Did you watch the game versus Miami where they were horribly inefficient on offense, given the fact that they were going up against a Miami defense?
Did you answer, Reed?
They barely won their division.
Say something, you coward.
That's right, exactly.
Okay, I will say something. Matt Collins, who's probably not even going to be suiting up in this game, Greg Ward, and all of these guys. Look, sans Greg Ward, I know they're all bums according to Steve, but they have 14 total catches on the entire season, and they're still beating these games. Look, I understand their opponents are bad, but Philadelphia, with all of their foils on offense in terms of their everyone, Zach Ertz, Miles Sanders, they're still winning these games. They could have easily thrown in the towel against these bad teams, but they haven't. I like momentum.
They lost to Miami.
Miami beat New England. I mean, in
I
Foxborough.
didn't pick New England to win that game either.
Yeah, Reed, pay attention.
So, yeah, I think Seattle wins this. I think Seattle wins it easily. Seattle has been playing really hard. They play good teams really hard. They were fighting for their division title, which was a totally different type of division title than that Eagles and Dallas Cowboy matchup. So, yeah, I'm going Seattle here.
Okay, Reed, for DFS Classic lineups, is there value to be had in this matchup?
Jordan Howard at $3,600. He's fully active. I know he was active in the last game, only one snap, and Boston Scott really took over when Miles Sanders went out. But $3,600, look at the red zone opportunities for Philadelphia. They're fourth in terms of scoring red zone opportunities over the last 3 games, and so I like Jordan Howard at $3,600 too. They should get in the end zone there.
Rosalie, what do you think?
I like 2. I like Deontay Burnett, 3,100. Again, we're talking about which of these guys on the Eagles are going to be able to step up. I understand Reed's position, but I'm worried about Boston Scott and how much he takes from Jordan Howard. But I really, really love the dart throw. Richard Rodgers, 2,500. He's signed with Philly again on Tuesday. Goddard and is going to get a lot of action. Ertz is hurting. And we know that Carson likes to target the tight end position, and Seattle gave up 36.3 fantasy points to these Eagles at the tight end position the last time they met.
Steve, value.
Yeah, Rosalie mentioned the household name that I'm going with, Deontay Burnett, 3,100, signed right off the practice squad. Look, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Robert Davis have not made any headway in trying to get carve a bigger role in this offense here. Burnett has just been here for a cup of coffee so far. 2 catches for 48 yards in that last game there. Look, he's got to be somebody who's probably on 3 wide receiver sets here. He's dirt cheap, 3,100. You're not going to get somebody that cheap who's going to be involved as much as he is, so I think he's a way to go.
Jeff, finally, value.
I think if we're talking like of the 4-game slate, obviously I'd go with David Moore. I think he's got a good shot here for a long pass. But I like the Seahawks defense and showdown. They're also cheap. I mentioned their road stats. 22 turnovers versus just 10 at home, and they've been far more productive, averaging 11.3 DK fantasy points. I think they can get to Carson Wentz in the spots. So I like the Seahawks DST.
Alrighty, guys, we need you to hang tight because you're back in a couple minutes to talk about Wild Card Weekend prop bets right after Adam Kaufman's conversation with Nick Eatman of DallasCowboys.com on the Jason Garrett situation.
It's not the conversation we had hoped to have Wild Card Weekend, but one that seemed increasingly inevitable over the course of the season. Adam Kaufman with Cowboys team beat writer Nick Eatman. And Nick, Dallas missed the playoffs, 8-8 finish, and as a result, Jason Garrett gone, it seems, after 9 years as the team's head coach. That is not official, just reports, nothing from the team just yet, as you know as well as anybody for that matter. The only surprise to me is it's taking owner Jerry Jones so long to make this decision. We're well past Black Monday at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the part that everybody's kind of surprised about, just how long this has taken. And maybe, fans and media people thought this was kind of inevitable, that he was going to be let go at the end of the season. And, it just hasn't been that easy of a decision, apparently, for Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones. And, that's one of the reasons why Jason has been here for 9 years, obviously. So, I think that they're still trying to figure out some things. Remember, the Cowboys have never been a team that, and I don't know how other organizations work, but if they don't have to make a decision right away, they usually don't. And I think this is one of those cases where, they don't feel like there's a strong push to do something right away. And they're not trying to fire Jason Garrett at all. If they do let him go, it'll just be that they move on and don't re-sign him, with a new contract. But they're not trying to make this a situation where he is ultimately fired. I think they want to just part ways if that's where they want to go. But, the more this goes on, the more just head scratching it is.
To that point, though, Garrett, he didn't get an extension last winter, was kind of a lame duck coach all season long. We talked about it often during the year about how, even a couple of playoff wins may not save Garrett. So did this seem kind of inevitable, or do we not even know what's inevitable right now?
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, we all thought that, but, and I think just the fact that he didn't get a contract extension after leading them to an NFC East title last year. And so by not doing that, if that wasn't enough, then you're thinking, okay, well, it's got to be more than that, clearly. And that's why we all kind of thought, well, he's got to go to a place he's never been before, right? Maybe the NFC Championship game, maybe further than that. But to not make the playoffs at all, not have a winning record, everybody just kind of thought, well, this is definitely it. And it might be. It really might be. Again, though, the Cowboys are going to work on their timetable. And there's some other factors involved, I think, just minor things, nothing that you would consider to be major deals. But just the fact that, just from the holidays and Jason trying to say, I don't know if he's saying goodbye, but at least clean up some things, talk to a lot of people after the season. And then you get into New Year's and you get into some other things going around in the city where, they maybe they didn't want to do that right then on New Year's Day. And so I kind of thought all along that maybe, Thursday or Friday, and it still could be Friday, it still could be today. But right now we look like we're heading into a weekend with no change.
Well, and I'm kind of thinking outside the box here a little bit, and off of some of the tea leaves maybe that you and I were looking at over the course of the year as well. But Jerry Jones, even just some of the comments he's made in various radio interviews late in the season and along the way, and talking about the whole Jason Garrett coaching situation, the possibility that if he really doesn't want to fire him, let's say, maybe he just does let the contract lapse and then he doesn't renew it. He has not fired him. He's just let him go. And all along the way, he can talk to coaches. He can do interviews behind the scenes right now. It's just there are no reports out there, which is maybe what makes it a little confusing.
Yeah, I don't really know, what to think about that. I there's so many different ways you can take this. That might be part of it. I would like to think that Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones aren't going to talk to coaches and keep him under contract and not allow him to talk to other teams. I would like to think that wouldn't happen, but I think that this is just a real sensitive situation. This is a guy that Jerry has known. Remember now, it's not just 9 years. This is he was a backup quarterback from 1992. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of respect for his dad, who was a scout for many years for the team. He passed away, I guess, a couple years ago. But this is a football family that has been a real big part of the Dallas Cowboys. So there's a lot of respect towards Jason and vice versa here. And so this isn't just as easy as what fans want it to be. Like, if you're not getting the job done, move on. And that sounds good. That sounds like the way it's supposed to be. But this is a family-run business. Jerry, Stephen, they have emotions, and they're going to do it what they feel to be the best timeline for them. And it's a lot more it's a lot more extravagant, I guess, than just saying, hey, we got to fire this guy because he went 8-8. I think it's more to it than that.
The squad is back. DraftKings contributors Steve Buchanan, Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, and the fantasy girl Rosa Lee Michaels need you guys to put on your sportsbook hats because we're talking about interesting prop bets for this weekend's games. I didn't tell you to put on your sportsbook hat, Emerson. Take it off.
Okay.
Thank you.
Get away from me.
It's a nice hat.
Steve, please be quiet. Okay, so wildcard weekend specials on the DK Sportsbook. Let's start with the highest scoring game, the favorite game here. I don't really think it's a surprise. Minnesota at New Orleans, plus 135. Steve, do you agree that game will see the most points?
It's hard not to. We mentioned it at the beginning of the show here. The Saints are averaging 37.5 points over their last 5 games. Like, they have just been scoring literally all season long. When Drew Brees is under center, they're scoring just over 30 points a game here. This Vikings defense is not going to give them much pushback. Yeah, I absolutely think this game has the highest scoring potential here.
Jeff, what do you think?
Just wait. There we
go.
Dang, I got my
Jeez.
sportsbook hat
What
on.
a loser!
Yeah, I like this too. You obviously have a 5-point differential in terms of the next highest game in terms of just pure point totals, so that's always good. And again, I really do feel like the Saints at home especially have given up a lot of points to teams in terms of just like backdoor covers. So the only game I'd even fear here is kind of see New England, again, just possibly a blowout, Derrick Henry running roughshed over the Patriots. But I like this bet. I like taking the over here on the other games with the Vikings and the Saints.
The Prince of Props. That is your new nickname.
Emerson is so proud of himself.
I
that he
feel
came
really
up with
good
that.
about that one.
You should have seen how like tall he sat
I went
up
like
there.
this. I went,
Yeah,
I was watching you, and then it hit me in the head, and I go,
There it is. I
waiting
got
for
it.
you to shut up, and I was like, the Prince of Props.
Wait, Jeff, can you actually turn that hat with the brim looking towards the camera? I want to see what that looks like first.
No.
Okay.
No, can't do it.
Reed, go ahead. Reed, go ahead.
Look, the only one, again, there are some games, right? Buffalo and Houston's in a dome, but again, you like that at that game. If you look at the numbers and hitting the under when that total is at 45 and under, it's way more easy to hammer that under. This is going to be the game to target, and it's going to be the highest scoring one.
Yeah, Rosalie, I feel like this total, too, has just been steaming up all week.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you look at the other games and you're like, yeah, that's the clear and obvious winner. You can't trust Buffalo and Houston. You can't trust Seattle and Philly. Like Jeff said, you could probably do New England, Tennessee, and then have a shot there, but this is definitely the highest game.
All right, guys, the favorite player to have the most rush yards on the weekend is Tennessee's Derrick Henry at plus 240. Jeff, who do you think the other candidates are? You can't go with Derrick Henry here.
I mean, first of all, I really like this bet. I like it more than the first one at plus 240. You look at the other candidates. I mean, Kamara is obviously a candidate here, but he's going to get a lot of rushes taken away from Latavius Murray and even Taysom Hill in some spots. I feel like the only player I would even take another shot on here to beat Henry it's Carlos Hyde. I think if Houston wins this game, it's because Carlos Hyde probably had a pretty effective day. Certainly capable of going over 100 yards. I definitely like taking Henry at this price, but I think Carlos Hyde is probably kind of an interesting dark horse in this one.
Reed, who's another candidate to have more rush yards than Derrick Henry?
Devin Singletary is the guy I'm going to look at if it's not Derrick Henry. I get Carlos Hyde, but look at the other side of the ball. He's averaging 16 touches in terms of what he's been able to do over the entire season, and getting the lead role since really week 15 or even earlier probably in that Buffalo backfield. If you look at what he did in terms of snap count in New England, or against New England, he was 52 of 54 snaps. He is that guy. I would say that Houston does give up more in terms of the pass catching for running backs, but Devin Singletary is just getting the volume there.
Rosalie, who's your pick?
I like Reed's pick with Singletary. I mean, you look at Houston, they give up a lot of rushing yards at home. But I just told you earlier, I know that Jeff has this love affair with Kirk Cousins at this point, but Dalvin Cook, they are going to just shove him down New Orleans' throat all game. And New Orleans gives up over 100 rushing yards per game at home. Heavy dose of Dalvin Cook. They've got to keep New Orleans offense off the field. They know this. So I think we're going to see a lot of him, and he's going to be able to run. So I think it's going to be Dalvin Cook.
Steve.
This isn't like a great slate for running backs. Like, we're trying to make all these guys in good matchups when, quite frankly, there really isn't like a smash spot here for really anybody. But I agree with Jeff. I actually like Carlos Hyde a lot at plus 700 here. If you're going with the narrative that Houston wins this game here, we've seen Carlos Hyde go over 100 rushing yards 3 times this season. Buffalo has allowed a team over 100 rushing yards on 5 different occasions this year. So the value you're getting with Carlos Hyde, who, by the way, isn't going to catch anything, so you don't have to worry about that. If he's touching the ball, he's rushing it, he ain't catching nothing. So I think Carlos Hyde at plus 700 brings some really, really good value here. So I do like him a lot.
Major favorite for most receiving yards this weekend is Michael Thomas. He's listed at plus 150, with the next closest receiver being Houston's DeAndre Hopkins at plus 600. Huge gap there. Reed, is Thomas the clear winner?
No, it's Deontay Burnett. No, I'm just kidding. It's not. Thomas is the clear. Yeah, he's a clear winner. Guys that I'm looking at, maybe DK Metcalf, I think is in a fantastic spot. John Brown as well. But Julian Edelman is getting so much volume, and so if I want to go to that, right, he doesn't get a ton of yards, but still in this volume, in this matchup, give me Julian Edelman if it's not going to be Thomas.
Rosalie, what do you think?
No, it's going to be Thomas. You're crazy to think it won't be Thomas. Minnesota gives up almost about 250 passing yards per game. Guess what? All of that, really, except maybe a little bit to Cook, is Michael Thomas. He was number 1 in passing yards this year, number 1 in targets, number 1 in receptions. So, yeah, it's going to be Michael Thomas. The volume that he gets is insane, and it beats everybody else, not by a little, but by a lot. So, yeah, give me Michael Thomas here.
Steve, do you like these odds, or you want to chase someone else?
I mean, listen, anytime you're going to get plus money on Michael Thomas, you just go ahead and take it there. I mean, obviously, like you mentioned, the huge gap between him and DeAndre Hopkins is telling here, but I don't mind taking a shot with some of these other guys that are the big downfield threats, like Tyler Lockett, who's at plus 1,200. I mean, that's somebody who could easily break off one of those huge receptions and be right in the mix there as well. Julian Edelman was brought up a couple times there. If they just try to keep peppering him with targets, he has the opportunity there as well, especially against someone who has poor as Logan Ryan here. But yeah, it's Michael Thomas, and then if you want to take a couple dark horse shots, Lockett, Edelman, I think, are some of the other ones. Jeff,
you want to take a shot on someone else here?
Yeah, I don't really love this spot. Again, not that Michael Thomas isn't obviously a great player. It's just that we're talking about receiving yards, not receptions here. So yeah, he might get the volume, but I mean, again, it's receivers, right? I mean, 170-yard touchdown pass to Tyler Lockett or A.J. Brown, and they're going to put up like 150 yards here. And Michael Thomas probably is going to lose. So I know plus 180 looks okay, but I like taking a shot down at Lockett. I think even Adam Thielen, again, going back to the narrative that Minnesota's going to be thrown late in this game is really interesting. He's going to have a prime matchup. But Lockett, Thielen, even A.J. Brown, I think all these guys are in play. So I don't really love betting the favorite here.
All right, excellent work. Let's get wild card, as Jeff's whiteboard says behind him.
Okay.
All right.
I was like, that sounds like a Jeff joke.
Yeah, lots of exciting stuff coming up on the Sweat. We've got the one and only Mike Francesa joining us live right after the latest from the DFS Edge.
What do you guys think about Corey Davis? Is that too thin? Because we've talked about him a lot this year just as like a pivot play off A.J. Brown, and he really hasn't done all that much. But in this particular spot, Adam, you just referenced, Patriots' game plan should be to take away A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry. So in theory, that could lead to some opportunity for someone like Corey Davis.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's been the same story with Corey Davis all year. A theoretically talented player with a good role and good opportunity metrics who just doesn't put it in the box score. You know, it kind of reminds me of Sammy Watkins a little bit. So, yeah, it would be, I think, a leap of faith to think that this is the spot where he blows up. And if you believe in the DVP stuff, I mean, he's certainly torched the Patriots. I faded him in that one game last year when everybody was on him against the Patriots. And it was like the only good wide receiver game the Patriots allowed all year. So, yeah, I'm very familiar with Corey Davis just torching the Patriots.
Theoretically talented is like probably the meanest thing you've ever said.
I don't get into evaluating talent, so I don't know. I mean,
theoretically talented, I guess like maybe.
He was a number 5 overall pick in the draft, right? He's got to be somewhat talented.
I mean, look, he's cheap. That's really what we're looking at here, right? More than anything else. More than the batter versus pitcher, more than the history versus this team, more than whatever other anecdotal stuff that we can say. He's a player who's on the field, running a bunch of snaps, has a path to targets, has seen a red zone target in 3 of the past 4 games, which is way more than he saw. You know, he had like 1 red zone target this season before the past 4 games. He's not somebody that they've used around the goal line or in the end zone. And that role has seemed to grow as everybody else, other teams are starting to key on other players. So we have a path to maybe 4, 5, 6 targets here for a guy who has seen more red zone usage recently and is sub 4K. And as tight as the pricing is this week, if you want to squeeze somebody like Michael Thomas in the lineup, or Ertz if he's actually going to play, or Goddard, who's the second most expensive tight end, you're going to have to find a value wide receiver in order to be able to do it. And he's one of them. So is Mo Sanu in the same game.
Yeah, Mo Sanu has been super disappointing for our Patriots.
He's theoretically talented, Pete.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I mean he has a cannon for an arm, and I do expect that the Patriots stick around. I mean they have a lot of these trick plays, and that's one thing I thought about with Sanu. I mean Sanu, Edelman, and Brady all can throw the football efficiently, and McDaniels has been known to do that stuff. So there is a sneaky play with Sanu throwing a touchdown somewhere here. But yeah, Corey Davis, last comment on him. I mean, I think that in general, all the DVP stuff, or specifically like, oh, this is what he's done versus other teams is very noisy. But it is interesting here now with A.J. Brown garnering so much attention. And the frustrating thing for me on Corey Davis is he was a touchdown machine in college. And he models as someone who should be really efficient in a big touchdown score, and it just hasn't happened this year. I mean, he's 6'3", he's a big guy that, in theory, they should be able to use, but he just hasn't done it.
All right, so it's almost time to say goodbye to our friends at News 12
Yeah, like
in
we are
Long
doing.
Island.
25 seconds. We gotta do it.
But what do we want to tell them? They can keep watching us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all the way.
Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You got all three of those. So keep your
Up until 1.
Keep your questions coming, and don't forget on Facebook we'll ask you questions. Oh yes, how the turntables.
All right, and now we've got the man, the myth, the legend here, Mike Francesa of Radio.com and WFAN. Great to have you here, Mike.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
We're good. How about you?
Good. I'm looking forward to the playoffs. You like football, these are special weekends. The doubleheaders on Saturday and Sunday are always special weeks, probably the two best weekends of the year in the NFL.
Yeah, let's rip through each of these wild card games here, starting with the Texans hosting the Bills, Mike, and Houston is a 3-point favorite. What are your thoughts here? You thinking the Texans cover, or can the Bills win this thing?
You know, the last couple of years it's been weird. The road teams have done very well, as everybody knows. They've swept the board the last 2 years and this weekend. And the games have been very low scoring. The under's been 7 out of 8 in the 8 games. So everybody seems to be moving in that direction again because that's been the trend, and people like trends. But and I don't like Houston. I never liked them as a favorite. This is a tricky game. It's interesting. Both quarterbacks can run, which is an interesting dynamic for both defenses. Bills have a better defense. Houston's more explosive. The one thing you always have to deal with in the playoffs as the visitor is do not allow the home team to knock you out in the first quarter. That it can happen in the playoffs very quickly, where you give up a touchdown, you turn it over, now all of a sudden you're down 14, the crowd's going crazy, you never come back. If they let Buffalo hang around in this game into the fourth quarter, they'll rue the day, because Buffalo has a habit of doing that, and then he has the quarterback, Allen has although he's never had a 300-yard passing game in the league, has a habit of making big plays in the fourth quarter. I think this will be a close game. I know they get a lift getting Watt back. I think Houston, because of the more dynamic play at quarterback, wins this game. A lot of pressure on Houston to win this game. If Buffalo waltzes in and beats them, it'll put a lot of pressure on O'Brien. I don't love either team, but I'll say Houston wins it by 21-17, 20, something like that. So I say Houston with us covers, but it's close, and it'll be pretty much a close game all the way. The Buffalo defense is pretty good. They're a playmaker away from being a very good team. But this is a game Houston should win. They just better hope they put Buffalo away before the last 5 minutes.
Okay. Mike, Titans at Patriots. New England are 4.5-point favorites. Last weekend was a rocky one for the Pats, as we all know. But do they pull this one out and cover?
It's interesting. Everybody is off the Patriot bandwagon. You're seeing everybody pick the Titans for the reasons I give you. Number one, that there's a couple of trends here that play completely against the Pats. Number one, as we said, the road teams have been doing very well in these games. Number two, Belichick doesn't do well against his former assistants and players. He's only a 500 coach against them historically. Vrabel knows the ins and outs of the Pats. He knows everything about them. He won 3 championships with the Pats. So he knows everything about them. He will take Edelman away. But Belichick will take away the big back, and he'll take away the screen game that Tennessee loves and which has been so good with play action. I don't think they'll blitz as much as everybody thinks they will. I think they'll go to school. They'll be very well schooled here. They'll win this, I think, on 2 things. They'll win it on the weather, and they'll win it by winning the turnover battle. They're plus 21 this year, the Pats are. That doesn't happen by luck. They are plus 21. I think there's only 1 game all year, maybe 2. I think 1 game they won easy against the Jets. They were -1 in the turnover battle. There's only 1 other game where they were minus in the turnover the whole year. They don't turn the ball over, although their offense stinks. And they force turnovers and they block punts. They'll win this game, I think, by a touchdown on special teams. They have the best special teams player in the world. I think, despite what everybody says, I think New England is not going to the Super Bowl this year, but I don't think they'll lose this game. I think they'll win this game 24-14, 24-17. But I think the Pats win it, and they could win it bigger than that if the turnovers come their way. The weather will be typical Pat. Tom Brady in this building, in bad weather or in clement weather, is virtually unbeatable his entire career. He's like 50-6 in these games. I cannot go with Tannehill against Brady in this spot. I have to go with Brady. I know everyone's picking Titans. I understand that, and this is the end of the era. I think it is the end of the era, but not this week. I think the Pats win.
Yep, and we all know Tannehill never won a game in Foxborough. But let's go to the NFC. Let's go to Sunday here, Mike. Saints 7.5-point favorites against the Vikings at home. Okay, you think the Saints will cover?
Again, I'm going to buck the trend. I think that I think right now the Saints are playing as well as anybody in the league. It's a shame for them because if they had not made one mistake against San Francisco, they would be the 1 seed, and they would be, in my mind, a stone-cold lock to be in the Super Bowl this year. I picked the New Orleans, Kansas City Super Bowl before the year started. I'm still staying with that. I'm not changing it. Neither has the best road, and I know Baltimore's got a magical run going, but I'll stay with it. New Orleans and Kansas City was, like I said, from day one was my Super Bowl. I'm sticking with it. Drew Brees has 15 touchdowns and no interceptions in December. They're playing the best football in the league right now. Minnesota is a dreadful road team, and the only reason you give them any hope is if Cook, who I think is a wonderful player and is the key to the team, comes back and plays well. They tell me he's healthy. Here's an amazing thing. Against teams where they have gone on to win 12 games or more in the season they play, Cousins is 1-13-1 against the spread against those teams in his career. The Saints won 13 games this year. Brees versus Cousins is a complete mismatch. Saints are playing so much better. Peyton and Zimmer both come off the Parcells Dallas tree. If Jerry Jones had his wish, he would want either one of these guys to coach the Cowboys next year. I don't think he can get either one out of their contracts. He's been after Sean Payton for years. Zimmer, if the owners in Minnesota blink on giving him a contract extension, he will try to get out of his deal and go to Dallas. Jerry Jones loves both these guys. They're both Parcells disciples of the first order. They're part of the family portrait. They're both very good coaches. But I like the Saints, and I think they'll win it. I think the number's high, but I couldn't pick against the Saints, number or no number. I think the Saints will win the game by probably – maybe you get a backdoor cover or something here against you, but I think the Saints win the game comfortably and they cover.
The last game of Wild Card Weekend features Seattle as 1.5-point road favorites. Mike, can Philly win this one outright?
I picked Philly when they had 5 weeks left. I picked Philly to win the division. I didn't like the way Dallas was playing. Philly would have had to run the table. Then they lost to the Dolphins. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be wrong. They blew a 14-point lead against the Dolphins. But then they ran the table after that. They beat the Giants twice. They beat the Redskins. And then they beat the Cowboys when they had half a team. Philly is missing so many players. They might be without the right side of their line. They have no wide receivers. Ertz has got bad ribs. They don't have any. Even Sanders, who played well for them recently, is hurt. They don't have any real weapons, but they were able to get the win against the Cowboys. Seattle's banged up too. To me, the key to the game is Clowney. If Clowney gives you an A game, he could be the guy who wrecks it and forces a couple of fumbles. We know the Eagle quarterback fumbles the ball a lot. I don't like this game from a betting standpoint because I think both teams are flawed. And I think both teams, though, have heart. And they've got guts, and they win close games. Neither one of these teams ever gives it up without a fight. They're both good in these spots. The Eagles know how to win tough games. Seattle knows how to win tough games. Russell Wilson's a tremendous player. I think he was as valuable to his team as anybody. Well, I know Jackson's going to be the MVP, but he was, to me, the most valuable player because without him, his team wouldn't even have been anywhere near the playoffs this year. They lost the heartbreaker the other night when things got goofy on the goal line. Things always seem to get goofy for the Saints, for these Seahawks on the goal line, as we know. Tough game. Gun to my head, and I don't like the game at all. I'll pick Seattle just because they're healthier.
All right, well, with the playoffs starting today, let's get your predictions. Who wins the AFC, who wins the NFC, and who goes on to win it all?
Kansas City and New Orleans are my teams, and I think this is Andy Reid's year. Now, that's a sentimental pick. That will be a very hard Super Bowl for Andy to win. But I think, like I said, I picked Kansas City and New Orleans before the season started. I'm sticking with that. The Spagnuolo defense has clicked. It is playing well enough now for them to now deliver a championship. Baltimore is on a run that should be unbeatable, except one thing. They don't have a pass rush. And if you don't have a pass rush, beating Mahomes with his weapons is going to be very, very difficult. I think Kansas City's road's not easy. It's a tough road to go to the Super Bowl. They're going to probably have to beat really good teams every step of the way to do it. But I think Kansas City, New Orleans, and I think it's Kansas City's year.
All right, we can't let you go without asking your thoughts on the Giants. Obviously, Pat Shurmur was fired. Could you give a letter grade for Shurmur's tenure in New York and then give us a prediction on who will be the head coach of the Giants next season?
Shurmur had to go. He dropped my show after week 2, and I made an ominous statement then. Any coach who has left our show before the season because he couldn't handle it, every one of them has gotten fired. I said it at the time, and now that record stays complete. Every one of them has gotten fired in the year they've done it. It's happened 4 times in the history of the program. He was the 4th. He deserved to go. He's a nice man. He was a bad coach. The letter grade for Gettleman is a Z, okay? It's been a zoo since he got there. He should have been fired with him, and I will make the statement right now, they will never win as long as Gettleman's there.
All right.
All right, so noted, never leave Mike's show.
Never.
When you are invited.
No, I'll tell you, 4 guys. Now, listen, it wasn't that bad. I mean, I asked him a tough question, and then, but it's happened. I said it at the time. It's happened. The other 3 times it happened with the Mad Dog. 3 times managers said, no more, we're not doing it. Each time they did not finish the season. Pat, give him credit, he finished the season, but he got fired at the end of the season. So, listen, he didn't get fired because he quit the show. He got fired because he couldn't win games. And Pat's never been able to win games. He's not a very good head coach. He's a good he should be an offensive coordinator. He should be a play caller. He is not a head coach. He just doesn't have the toughness, and he doesn't have the all-encompassing gene to run the whole team and run the game. It's just beyond him. He's not good at it. He should not be a head coach. He's 0 for 2 now. He'll probably never be one again. He could have a very long career as a coordinator. And he's a nice guy, but he's not a head coach.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on, my friend.
Fun. Thank you. Take care.
Enjoy the weekend. You're the best. We'll be right back with some hot takes. Plus, we're going to make it rain right after this Sunday night KFC Showdown preview.
Final game of Wild Card Weekend is here. Seahawks at the East champion Eagles, and if you like talking birds, you've come to the right place. This is the Sunday Showdown series presented by KFC. Adam Kaufman, Reed Fowler, and this matchup will obviously feature some poultry in motion, Reed. Yeah, I know. So give us your Colonel's pick.
Yeah, it's going to be Carson Wentz. This guy has been amazing in the month of December. 10 touchdowns to 1 interception. He's completed 30 passes in 3 of his last 4 games to a virtual who's who at receiver. He really doesn't have anyone there. We like Dallas Goedert. We like some of the pieces there. But this entire Philadelphia team has been injured. But the home team getting the points there, give me Carson Wentz.
Anyone else you're taking a flyer on?
Yeah, absolutely. Dallas Goedert, I just mentioned him. When you look at tight ends, you like to pair them up and stack them with your quarterback. And look at Seattle. They're giving up the second most DK fantasy points to opposing tight ends. That only has 1 less touchdown than Zach Ertz, and close to, I would say, 40 to 50 less targets on the season. So get Dallas Goedert in, because if Ertz can't go, he's your guy.
All right, it's going to do it for the latest edition of the Sunday Series. KFC's famous bowls now just $3. That's a whole pound of delicious KFC classics for only $3. I repeat, an entire pound of food, $3. KFC, it's finger looking good.
Okay, back here live on The Sweat. It's everyone's favorite time of the show. It's going to get super hot in this studio. Steve and Reed, how about you guys exchange some hot takes for me? What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it. We've already exchanged numbers because we're best of friends, so we already got that out of the way. That's right. It's the first hot take that we got that Steve and I are actually friends, despite this segment. But the hot take that I got again in this wild card weekend is Dallas Goedert. Steve's best friend, not named Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert will be the second highest score of all pass catchers, that's receivers included, on the slate. And here's why. Seattle, Steve mentioned it. Seattle is a team that gives up a ton of production to the opposing tight ends, over 1,000 yards total on the season. Zach Ertz isn't playing this game, and even if he's out there, it's going to be a decoy. He's not going to be playing this game. If you look since week 12, this guy's target share has been absolutely amazing. We've seen him get touchdowns even when Zach Ertz is in the game. Again, DK Fantasy Points, Seattle is second amongst all teams giving up that much production to the opposing tight ends. 22 targets over the last 2 games, only 1 less touchdown than Zach Ertz on the entire season on 48 less targets. Dallas Goedert, and I get it, DK Metcalf, John Brown, Julian Edelman, these guys are pass catchers that we do like, but Dallas Goedert will be the second highest score, only to Michael Thomas, because I think, look, sorry Rosalie out there, Philly's going to win this game and win it big.
Yes. I love when you back me up into this corner. Like, I would look so ridiculous trying to dispute your hot take. It's so mild because we've already said that the Seahawks have been one of the worst teams against opposing tight ends. Like, if there's no Zach Ertz, who is Carson Wentz going to throw to? Exactly. So it's going to have to be Dallas Goedert, especially if Zach Ertz is out of the mix. So this is kind of like saying, oh, if I had 2 crayons and I lost one, I'm going to have to use the only one I have left because that is all I have left. Like, yes, of course this is what's going to happen here. I hate when you do this because, I would love to, say that you're wrong and, that this is not going to happen here. But, yes, Ertz has nobody else to throw to. You mentioned that the Seattle Seahawks have been one of the worst teams against tight ends. Actually, I'm sorry, I said that because I was doing the research on that earlier. But that really is what it is. Dallas Goedert is in such an amazing spot if Zach Ertz is out of this game. Even with Zach Ertz out of that game, you mentioned the 22 targets that he had over his last 2 games. Ertz was active for one of those games. I think it was the game that he had the 10 targets in. So he's even been getting all the work when Zach Ertz is on the field too as well here. So great take, Reed. Captain Obvious, we get it.
No, time out, but you think he has a good chance because I said second. He's going to be second
to Michael Thomas.
And so that means he's beating out all the guys that we talked about earlier. So I get it. Dallas Goedert's in a great spot, but to have that ceiling, because look, John Brown is in a great spot. We like him for instance. Let's take him for example. Do you think Josh Allen is going to be throwing it a ton downfield because he needs to hit that if he wants to be one of these GPP dart throws or to get that ceiling game? He needs to be throwing it a ton, or John Brown needs to be breaking off a couple big runs.
Yep.
It's production from a tight end, and a tight end as a second high scorer, not named Travis Kelce or some of these other guys like George Kittle. I think it's a really good hot take.
It wasn't bad. I mean, we only got 4 games to choose from, so, they're limited here.
Bear with us.
I got here that Kenny Stills, this is a Kenny Stills week. This is one of those weeks he's going to go for over 100 receiving yards and at least 1 touchdown in this game. This screams a Kenny Stills game, and I'll tell you why, because we're talking about Buffalo here. They have some really good quarterbacks here. Stills is probably going to get one of the best matchups in slot coverage against Teron Johnson. He's allowing a 76% catch rate, only 9 yards per reception, which sounds pretty good, but this is somebody who missed a good chunk of the season. He's been healthy as of late over the last 3 weeks. That jumped up to 12 yards per reception here. DeAndre Hopkins could be in some really tight coverage. Will Fuller, even if he's active in this game, I'd put money down that he's going to re-injure himself and he'll be out by the second quarter because that's all Will Fuller does. And quite frankly, even when Will Fuller has been on the field, he's had 2 games where he actually really brought back value on his salary here. That's why he's as cheap as he is because, quite frankly, doesn't do anything when he's healthy. Oh, and he's never healthy to begin with here. I think this game is one for Kenny Stills. No one's really talking about Kenny Stills either, and rightfully so. He's not like one of those guys that really blows up on a week-to-week basis, but this just feels like the stars are aligned for Stills to have one of those big games. So I have Kenny Stills over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, look, Steve mentioned that he likes Buffalo. We all mentioned that we like Buffalo to win that game. Now, I'm not saying that it's not feasible for Houston to have a good game, but first he likes Carlos Hyde to beat out in terms of rushing, and now he likes Kenny Stills. It kind of sounds like you think Houston is going to win this game.
That's
So based off of what you're saying, look, Buffalo, what you do against Buffalo this season, which is weird to say, is you run the ball. And that's why I get it. You like that Carlos Hyde take. I actually agree with it in terms of if Houston wants to win this game, they're going to attack that Buffalo defense on the ground. And to your credit, no one's mentioning Kenny Stills right now. Kenny Stills and GPPs is going to be a fantastic play. You're not going to be so much on DeAndre Hopkins and Trey White. But look, we've seen what Watson does without Fuller in the game. And we can't just say that all of those targets and that production is going to go to Kenny Stills. His ADOT is less. His passer rating, his explosive percentage rating are all down when Will Fuller is out of the game. I would like it actually more if Will Fuller is active just as a decoy and Kenny Stills is in the game, because we've seen Stills have big games in those 3 wide receiver sets. Again, no one's talking about Stills, so I like it in that sense, but come on, the Bills are going to win this game, right?
Yeah, the Bills are going to win this game, but let's also not forget, too, the Saints put up 46 points against the 49ers and still lost. So we can still have these big fantasy performances, and they don't have to win. Bills are going to win this game. Big game from Carlos Hyde, big game from Kenny Stills. Speaking of big game, we're going to throw it back to Emerson.
Ooh, I like that.
Will you guys please just stay there, because we need you to help us and help the people at home make it rain today.
Woo! Final stretch.
We are going to bring Jeff back in. We're going to bring the fantasy girl, Rosalie Michaels, back in. We're going to end this show the way we started it, with a quad box. There's 4 boxes.
Right. So making it rain. Thank you. There's 4. Counting's hard too. So this is when you guys give us your DFS play that is absolutely going to make it rain cash. Think slate approved pick. And then we want to see what the rest of the panel thinks of your selection. Let's use our nice words only. Reed, you're up first.
Yeah, Jeff. It's going to be Devin Singletary for me. Look, there's a lot of places that you can go on this slate. Devin Singletary, when you look at his production and you look at what Buffalo wants to do, they know their identity is running the ball and playing strong defense. And if you look at Houston, what in terms of their defense, ranks bottom 5 and giving up close to 34.5 fantasy points per game. Since week 11 to that position. Devin Singletary is that guy. That's why the Bills took him as high as they did. He has a line share in this backfield. He should get those goal line touches as well. So if you want a nice little, I wouldn't say GPP, a contrarian play, Devin Singletary is going to be my guy.
Does anybody, I feel like, does anybody have a strong opinion about Devin Singletary? Like, no.
I'm just afraid of the touchdown thing. I think he's going to get the yards, but I don't know if he's going to get the touchdowns, because Josh Allen likes to call his own number on the goal line, so I don't know that he's going to get the touchdowns.
Thing about Singletary is that he's pretty much game script proof. He's going to get the carries. He's going to get the targets. Doesn't matter if they're up or down here. But you are right about the red zone thing. That is definitely a concern with Josh Allen. Even Frank Gore has a higher red zone carry percentage over Singletary. I think it's 36% for Gore, 25% for Singletary. So it is a little bit of a concern there. But if he's going to be soaking up the rest of the work, no problem going with Singletary.
Yeah, I
Whoa, jeez. What'd you do to your microphone, Jeff?
Jeff, you sound awful.
I'm bleeding from the ears, Jeff.
Somebody help me.
Something's up with your microphone.
Anyway, I'll cover for you, Jeff, when you fix that. Look at Devin Singletary. On the year, he's got 25 explosive runs, which are runs of 10-plus yards. And so, yes, when you look at the touchdown regression, if you look at the touchdown regression, you like Devin Singletary. Look, 5.1 yards per carry as well. This guy's a rookie, and he has one of the best running backs be his mentor in Frank Gore. That's all, as Rosie likes to call, like the fluffy stuff and the intangibles, and getting a little weird in terms of the analysis. But in terms of what Buffalo wants to do on the road as well, I just have a lot of faith in Singletary. Jeff,
how's this? Is this better?
It's like a little bit better.
A little bit. Jeez, Jeff.
You still sound like you've done something horrible to your microphone. What did you do,
He's
Jeff?
underwater right now. Jeff, take off that hat.
It's got to be the hat.
Okay, I'm going to ask Steve right now for his make it rain pick.
Yeah, I mean, if I can hear you okay.
It's really bad,
absolutely
man.
Annihilated my ear, but whatever. Like, we're fine. Weather stinks. Don't worry about it. It's going to be Josh Allen for me. We talked about how good of a matchup this is. I think this is pretty chalky, honestly, here. But 9 rushing touchdowns for Josh Allen, which is the highest amongst all quarterbacks. The Texans have allowed 17 rushing yards per game to opposing quarterbacks. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's one of the highest in the league here. I think Josh Allen's going to have his way with this Texans secondary with John Brown, Devin Singletary, get some quick checkdowns here. His upside with his legs is just too high too as well here. So Josh Allen's my guy this week.
Okay, Reed, any reason to think you should just steer clear of Josh Allen?
No, I don't think you should absolutely steer clear. But if you look at since 2002 of quarterbacks making their first start 14-30 straight up. And so if you think the Bills are going to win, yes. And that's what we do think, that narrative is there. And that Josh Allen needs to be good in terms of going into Houston's house and beating them. That's the only thing that scares me, is that this is his first time. But again, don't worry too much, because Sean McDermott is a good coach.
Yeah, Rosalie, I know you're not totally anti-Josh Allen, right?
No, I'm not totally anti-Josh Allen. In a showdown, I like him, but I'm surprised that these guys are going with 2 Bills for their make it rain picks in games that are the game that is supposed to be the lowest scoring of the slate, which is surprising to me. I'm surprised that that's who they're targeting. I like some other people, so.
Well, let's hear Rosalie.
Jeff? No, wait.
Why'd you give yours?
Yeah, I'm afraid to ask what.
is building.
What is Jeff going to say?
Jeff?
Wait, hold on, Jeff.
Oh, thank you.
You're back. You're back. You're back.
Don't touch it.
I want to apologize to the viewers who had to actually listen to more Reed because I couldn't talk. That was terrible.
Apology not accepted.
I'm an apology to me. I got this sting in my ear. You're practicing
completely hit
crippled.
the nail on the head. Why are you targeting Buffalo Bills in like what could be the lowest game of the year? Give me Boston Scott over whoever Reed took, and give me Kirk Cousins over Steve Boyd. So my make it rain pick is Adam Thielen. Again, we're targeting the highest point total here by far. I know Adam Thielen's a bit of an injury risk, but look, I think it's worth taking. He's going to have a good matchup in the slot. Vikings are going to be passing late in this game. We've seen teams like Carolina put up over 30 points, San Francisco put up over 40 points in the Dome in New Orleans. I think Adam Thielen is going to come through for people who take a chance on him today.
Rosalie, you did not look impressed. Everyone else was giggling. You look angry.
No, I'm confused. I'm absolutely confused because it's the Make It Rain segment, right? I'm in the right segment right now.
Yeah, no, you have it right.
Okay, because I'm confused. Thielen's not had. He's had 3 games at 8 targets out of the 10 that he's played. That's the most that he's had. His opportunity has been injured. No, but even in the games he played, his target share has gone way down, even in the games that he's playing. So plus I don't know that he's going to make it through the whole game. So, and what did I say earlier? Dalvin Cook. They're going to feed him a lot. It's going to be a lot of Dalvin Cook. I think you're just stacking with that Kirk Cousins thing. So I'm confused by the Thielen. Diggs I could see, but the Thielen thing, don't know.
I want to go back to Jeff real quick because he made this big presentation crapping on our picks. So I'm expecting him to come back with well, here's Drew Brees or something. Yeah. He comes out of left field with Adam Thielen. Look, I'll give you a chance to change your pick. If you want to change it Will Fuller, you can do that too. If you're going to throw someone like Adam Thielen out there, you came in all high and mighty and you throw Adam Thielen in the mix. Okay, dude, you stay in Canada, okay? Absolutely amazing.
Look, I don't come to Jeff's defense quite a bit. GPP's fine, but have that qualifier, sure. Jeff. GPPs make it rain because you can't trust this guy at all. And I guess the secondary, look, Marshawn Lattimore has been fantastic against opposing receivers. So yeah, maybe, but come on, Jeff.
Yeah, not a make it rain pick. Are you out of your mind?
Is out.
That's true. Eli
Apple actually probably would benefit more if he was in.
Yes.
Janoris Jenkins too. We don't know how well he's going to do. We know how well he's played, but Janoris Jenkins being there, who knows?
This is going to be great Monday fodder, so look the tape.
Okay.
Clearly going for 180 yards now.
Let's get Rosalie's Make It Rain pick.
Okay, clearly, I don't know. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here because I'm going Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas in a game that, again, is going to be the highest scoring game on the slate. It's, he's number 1 in targets. He's number 1 in receptions, not by a little, by 33. Number 1 in receiving yards, not by a little, by 300, by a lot. He's 4th in touchdowns on the year, 9. This guy's going to have the opportunity. He's got 6 games over 30 fantasy points this season, including a game against a very good San Francisco defense where he scored a lot of fantasy points. And Minnesota's been pretty good at home versus the wide receiver position. They're not as good on the road. And at home, they give up about 1.5 touchdowns per game, but on the road, 2.4. So that's going to be Michael Thomas, my friend. Maybe a little bit of Kamara, but more Michael Thomas.
Steve, you're into that pick.
Well, Jeff, why don't you tell her why she's wrong? It should be Traquan Smith, judging by your past pick. No, but obviously, yes, Michael Thomas, of course. I mean, he's going against such a bad secondary. Like, of course, Michael Thomas makes plenty of sense. But let's hear what Jeff has to say. Maybe Ted Ginn. Would you like that one better, Jeff?
What?
I think he likes Josh. I think he likes Josh Hill better.
I'm sorry. I can hear after your abomination of a microphone, but you can't. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, but just one thing really quick before we go. Could we just get a look at the weather, though? Because, you know, Steve, look at this, Steve.
Oh, my God. Look at all those red lights breaking because of the weather.
It's opening up for Derrick Henry.
Winter Storm Henry coming through.
Winter Storm
Henry. That guy's definitely jaywalking, though, for sure. Look
at this.
That's the quad box that I want.
So perfect.
That is the quad box. Congratulations, guys in the back there.
The weather remains undefeated.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
3
everybody.
versus 1.
All right, well, I mean, that's a show.
Oh, yeah, we have 20 seconds left.
First Sunday of 2020.
Bye, Gate.
That's a show.
I love doing a show on a Saturday. It's very clean. There are no errors, and everyone's feeling great.
That remains to be seen. But we'll be doing Saturday shows, but we'll also be here on Monday. So we'll see you Monday at 10 a.m.
Deuces.